Hello everyone, it's Linda Hayes again, and today I want to talk about some of the things to consider if you're considering either moving to San Pedro or Placencia, and what are the differences between the areas, either as a person that wants to live there or to invest. So I put a map on the slide that I got from Belize Hub of the country of Belize, which is just south of Mexico. And if you look at the very, very top tip of the map, you can see Corozal, which is really close to Mexico. I've been there before. It's very quiet, not a lot of tourism, not a place I would really go to visit again personally. And then if you go to the right of that, you can see the call out for Ambergris Caye, which is an island. And you can see this little indicator for San Pedro. And right below that, you can see a call out for Caye Caulker, which is the sister island that's even smaller. And if you keep going down on the coast, you can see Belize City there, which is where you fly into, and you keep going down, you can see many, many places, and then you get to another bolded call out for Placencia. It is a peninsula, and then below that, if you keep going down farther, you'll actually get to Punta Gorda, and right inland a little bit, there's Big Falls. And I actually did a couple trips to Punta Gorda and Big Falls, because that is a place where my boyfriend actually has some land where he's going to do farming. So Punta Gorda is really known for very luscious land, and the thing about Placencia is that it is backing onto the Maya Mountains. So it's a bit of a different view, and it's a peninsula, not an island. So one of the things that's really nice is that it has a really good highway where you can go all the way from Belize City really easily with a rental car. So now I just want to talk about the difference in the flight prices. So obviously if you're coming into Belize, you're going to fly into the international airport in Belize City. If you're going to San Pedro, you can take a quick 15-minute puddle jumper flight, and on March 26, Maya Air had it listed at $82 US today when I looked it up. You can also take a water taxi. I take the Belize Express quite a bit, a lot more affordable, but it does take an hour and a half. If you want to go to Placencia, it's a 25-minute flight, and the same Maya Air flight on March 26 for one way is $140 US, so a little more expensive, but there you can also rent a car, and I've done that a few times with Crystal Car Rental, and it's about a 3.5-hour drive, but it is a beautiful highway to drive on, and there is also a bus you can take. It's about 185 kilometers to get to Placencia. So I am going to have some videos in the future about my trips to Punta Gorda and Placencia to show you what they look like, but for now I just want to compare San Pedro to Placencia. So if you've seen my other videos, you would know I bought property in Ambergris Caye back in 2020. And the reason I did so is because it does have the highest percentage of tourists visiting Belize. And a lot of reasons for that. One is that it is really close to the world's second largest barrier reef, which is fantastic for snorkeling, diving, all those kind of water activities. And I did come for 3 weeks in December 2020, and I've stayed ever since. And my biggest thing that I love about Ambergris Caye is the people and all of the activities. You can pretty much go out every night of the week and do something. If you want to do karaoke, I think it runs every single night, maybe except Monday. And on Wednesday night, for example, it's at many different places. It's almost hard to know everything that's available because there's so many things. If you like to play cribbage, it's a few times a week, pickleball's a few times a week, live entertainment all the time, and a whole bunch of different activities. And it's very, very easy to meet people because there's so many expats, so many friendly people. A lot of times we have dinners, we have 10 to 12 people regularly, and it's always a great time. For Placencia, my first trip actually was in April of 2021, where I went with a group of people, and we actually had a good time. And to me, it was a place that was a more quiet vibe. It was actually really nice. We did meet a lot of nice people there as well, and as long as you can find some of the hangouts where people go, it actually is really nice. And we stayed in April at a little boutique resort called Ocean Breezes right on the beach, and I have a picture of that coming up, and it's really, really nice. I went back a couple times recently, and I actually took my other friends that we went with over to that beach just to show them the vibe there. The place has a really nice swim up bar, lots of people go there. There was rum tasting we had there recently, and it is really nice. So I did actually end up buying land in Placencia, so I thought I would do a comparison of the places because this is a place I actually never considered buying until recently. So in terms of a comparison of the beaches, I just put a couple pictures in there. So one at the bottom is San Pedro. It's South Beach. That's not that far from Mahogany Bay. And that's quite a nice beach. But you'll notice in San Pedro, a lot of the beaches, especially downtown, they're not very wide and there is a lot of sargassum. In Placencia, you can see on the top page, that's a picture I took just recently, and it actually typically is a little bit of a larger beach. The sand is a lot deeper, I find, and in some places, like at that Ocean Breezes place, because the sand's deeper, there isn't sargassum as noticeable. It's down the ledge, and there doesn't seem to be as much of it in many of the locations. The other thing is that it's very nice to drive on a highway with a regular vehicle rather than a bumpy road with a golf cart, because in San Pedro, the roads definitely need a lot of work. So Placencia does have a lot quieter beaches. I mean, I sit on the beach by the Ocean Breezes Resort, and sometimes I see like 1 or 2 people go past, whereas in San Pedro, if you're sitting on the beach in many of the areas, you're going to see a ton of people all the time. Now, San Pedro does have way more bars, restaurants, and stores because it's much more populated. And Placencia is actually very spread out. So the peninsula, when you go in, is about 16 miles long. At the very end is the village, and that actually has an amazing sidewalk, and I will have some pictures of that when I actually do a full video of Placencia. But the sidewalk is amazing. You can just walk down the sidewalk. There's a whole bunch of different art galleries, wood shops, little Airbnb properties, resorts, and it's really close to the beach, and the bars are there as well. If you go down farther in the peninsula, there's a lot of different expat communities, and then even some local Mayan towns. One's called Sidebyside. That's something that you pass by. So as you're driving in the peninsula, you go around to the Placencia turnoff, you'll actually see a really posh area that has some really, really large houses. It's called the Placencia Residences. And as you keep going down, you'll see a lot of really nice communities. And that's actually what we did the last trip that we took. So now I want to talk about my recent purchase. So if you look at the top picture there, the lot that I bought is actually over a 1/4 acre, and right beside it is a park. The picture in the middle actually shows the fantastic canal and all the really nice trees. A nice thing about the area too is that the roads are very well maintained. There's not any potholes or anything like that. And on the bottom picture, you can actually see the beach. So even though we bought on the canal side, which we really like because you can have mountain views, we actually could just go across the road to the resort where the beach is. And we're allowed to use the resort that has a really nice gym, a pool, and obviously kayaks and things like that on the water. We were able to get financing on the lot, so that was nice because that's specifically what we were looking for when we went down there, was to find something with financing. So now I thought it would be helpful to do a side-by-side comparison of the 2 properties I have in Belize. So they're both on canals, and so the price point in San Pedro at Mahogany Bay Village is right now at about $165,000 US from the last video I saw. And the lot I bought in Placencia, not all that much different. I bought it for $159,000 US. And now I wanted to talk about the lot size. So in Mahogany Bay, lots are typically 50 by 75, which is 3,750 square feet. My lot in Placencia, conversely, is over 11,000 square feet, or a 1/4 acre, so a much bigger lot. Now, on the financing side, there are quite a lot of developments you can buy land in that have financing available, and the terms are always different. So in Mahogany Bay, it's actually really good financing. You can go up to 30 years, and the payments you can even do on credit cards, so that's fantastic. And then in Placencia, I was actually able to only get a 10-year loan. So one advantage is it'll be paid off sooner, but some people might want lower payments, and they would allow you to amortize over a longer term, but then you have a balloon payment at the end of 10 years. So again, every developer will be different just depending on their objectives. Next, let's talk about resort access. So in Mahogany Bay Village, they have a Hilton hotel and they have private residences. The private residences do not have access to the Hilton pool or private beach club. You'd have had to buy in the Hilton for that. So there is a pool that's started construction. That will be a community pool, and that should be finished sometime in the near future. In Placencia, however, the property I bought is in a place where I can access the resource because it's owned by the same developer. So the beach side has a pool and a gym and everything that I'm able to use, even though my property is just on the other side of the road on the lagoon side. So build timelines and restrictions is the next thing to talk about. So in Mahogany Bay, right now, it depends what street you buy on. So if you buy on Street 1 and Street 4, you have an immediate build timeline, which makes sense because then construction will be complete and you won't have it in your area. And in Placencia, there's really no timelines. The developer doesn't care if you build at all. There's tons of really nice trees. You can't really see what's going on the other lots anyway, so he's not all that concerned about when building happens. And despite the land almost being about, I think it's about 70% sold in that development, there's still not that many houses that are actually finished at this point. So in terms of restrictions, that's another thing always to look at. So in Mahogany Bay, currently, there's 2 builders you can choose from, whereas in my Placencia land, it's actually better for us because there isn't really any builders that you have to use, and since my boyfriend is a general contractor, that's a huge advantage for us. Now let's get into HOA fees. So in Mahogany Bay Village, we didn't have to pay the HOA for the first 2 years that we were able to negotiate that into the contract, and once we're starting to pay, it'll be $350 US a month. And it is important to get the HOA documents when you make the purchase. We actually didn't get them, and we've recently found out that garbage pickup is not included, and if we want, we have to actually coordinate getting garbage picked up in our property there. In Placencia, the HOA fees are a little different. So how it works is that when you have vacant land, you pay $500 US per year, and then after you're done building, you pay $500 US per year per bedroom. So for example, if I did a 2-bedroom unit, which is what I have in Mahogany Bay, my fee would only be $125 US per month. So a lot more affordable HOA fees, but it depends on the size of the property you build there. And at first, some people might think it's bad to pay an HOA when you have vacant land, but I can tell you that driving through the neighborhood with the very well-maintained lots in my lot on Placencia, I can see what they use that HOA for. So I'm actually kind of happy that they're collecting that to keep the neighborhood really looking nice. Next thing to talk about is rental management. So I hadn't really considered this all that much in my build in Placencia because we plan to live there eventually, but it is something important to talk about. So in Mahogany Bay Village, you can choose to do your own rental management, or you can use their rental management pool, but I can't really comment on how that works because I've been having a long-term tenant in there and they've just hired a new manager, so I'm not really sure how it's going right now. In Placencia, if you can do the same thing. You don't have to use their rental management, but if you do want to use it, you can actually use the resort to rent out. So I think that's one of the huge advantages that made me buy this particular development in Placencia, because there were quite a few that had rental management, but I really wanted one where there is a resort, because then you have that name to help you rent your property, which I think is a huge advantage. So now I want to show AirDNA for San Pedro. So you can see that it's got a rating of a B+ in AirDNA. Average daily rate is $165, occupancy at 42%, and revenue of $1,540. If you scroll down, there's 377 active rentals, shows the rental channel they're listed on, and the distribution of 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. So 1 bedrooms, obviously there's a ton in comparison to the other. You can also go into each property and compare what it actually made and what the occupancy is. So AirDNA is very useful for that type of analysis, and I showed this actually in a previous video where I talked about pro formas on how to analyze different investment opportunities. And next I'm going to do the same comparison for Placencia to show how it compares to San Pedro. So now I've pulled up Placencia, and you can see it actually has a market grade of A-, so actually a little higher than San Pedro. Average daily rate's $159, occupancy at 45, and revenue of $13.99. So the listing channel's showing, and you can also do the same thing and just compare what each property looks like if you're planning to build something, you know, whether it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, what it's like, and then just kind of see how you would do your budget if it is for rental purposes. So showing the results on the same slide kind of helps compare AirDNA between Placencia and San Pedro. So San Pedro on the top, you can see the average daily rate is $165 a night. Placencia a little bit lower, $159. I was actually surprised at how expensive Placencia was when I was staying there over the past couple of weekends. We're also planning a trip in April, and we found a lot of the places we wanted to stay were actually sold out. So on an occupancy standpoint, the most recent report, this is one I just pulled today, which shows the occupancy average of 42% in San Pedro and in Placencia 45%, and the revenue in Placencia just a little bit lower, probably because of that lower daily rate. And obviously there's a lot more research to do. This is just an overview at this exact point. So I've heard some people say Placencia is a bit more seasonal than San Pedro. Both of the places do have access to the barrier reef. Obviously Ambergris Caye is a bit closer, but in Placencia you could still get there on a boat within 15 minutes. So I hear that water activities are pretty much the same in both places. The one advantage to Placencia that some people have told me that I've met there is that they can still do all the water activities, but they can also hop in their car, go zip lining, go hiking, go into the mountains, into the jungle, cave tubing, all those opportunities. So if you're someone who likes that, then Placencia might be a better fit. Ambergris Caye, you know, more on the nightlife and that kind of thing. So I hope this video has helped. Originally, I bought in San Pedro because it was all I heard about in videos for investing purposes. And when I actually been traveling to Placencia quite a bit, I realized I actually liked it and might want to live there. And that is different for every person. Everyone has different viewpoints of what they like. Do you want something a little bit more vibrant, a lot more people, more things to do? San Pedro might be the place for you. If you want something a bit quieter, but still with a great feel, Placencia is also an option. Now, from an investing standpoint, it shouldn't really matter which you like better. What you need to do is pull out your spreadsheets, look at AirDNA, and do a budget for whatever opportunity you're pursuing, and then see what makes the most sense.